So, for a lot of us, when Ramadan ends, it feels like we've crossed the finish line, right? But what if I told you that's actually the starting line? Let's dig into this idea that even though the month of fasting is over, the most important part, the spiritual birth, might have only just begun. Think about it like this: that special guest, Ramadan, has packed up and left. That whole month of intense spirituality, of discipline, of community, it's gone, and things get quiet again. And in that quiet, there's this huge question just hanging in the air. So, what now? What are we supposed to do next? This period right after Ramadan, this is what one author calls the moment of truth. See, it's not an ending. It's actually the beginning of the real test. It's like the training wheels just came off, and now we're about to find out if all those lessons from the last month actually changed us for real. Okay, so to really get a grip on this moment of truth, we've got to back up a little and look at how Ramadan itself is framed. It's almost like it's presented as a kind of life in a capsule, a super compressed version of our entire journey here. The Quran uses this very specific phrase to describe Ramadan, ayyam ma'dudat, which means numbered days. Now, on the surface, that sounds simple enough. It's just a limited amount of time. But the deeper meaning, whoa. It's this really powerful warning that these days are counted. They're finite, just like every single day of our own lives. And that's the whole idea, right? Ramadan acts as a miniature rehearsal for the entire lifetime. The crazy speed with which it shows up and then just vanishes, that's supposed to be a lesson for us. A little preview of just how fast our own lives are going to fly by. And this hourglass, it just captures that feeling perfectly. Once you flip it, that sand starts to fall and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's relentless. That's Ramadan. And the source argues that is also our life, a countdown that once it gets going, you can't pause, you can't rewind. So this all leads to a pretty tough question, a real gut check question we have to ask ourselves. If we were careless with these precious numbered days of Ramadan, if we just let them slip through our fingers without any real purpose, what on earth does that say about how we're treating the rest of our life? All right, now we're getting to what is maybe the most powerful metaphor in this whole thing. It reframes Eid morning, the big celebration, not as just a party, but as this moment with huge, profound spiritual consequences. I want you to really picture this scene. It's Eid morning, everyone's celebrating, but in this metaphor, you're not at a party. You're standing anxiously outside a spiritual delivery room. It's quiet, it's tense, you're just waiting for the news. Was there a birth? Did all that spiritual labor of the last 30 days actually result in a new life? And here's the thing. In this delivery room, there are only two possible outcomes, no in between. On one side, you've got the newly born. These are the souls who are basically washed clean by the river of Ramadan. They come out with a totally new character, purified, changed. But then you have the other side, those not yet born. They went through the motions of the month, but the light never really got in. They just stayed stuck in the darkness of their own spiritual swamp. Okay, so how in the world are you supposed to know which one you are? Well, the source gives us this really tangible, symbolic test, a way to check for yourself if you've actually been set free. So imagine this. You're getting dressed for Eid, putting on your new clothes, you look in the mirror, and the author asks you to do something strange. Just stop and listen, really listen. In that silence, do you hear a faint clanking sound? The ghostly echo of chains you might still be dragging around? This whole idea has a really clear goal: to achieve freedom from the fire. But what does that really mean? It means breaking the heavy, heavy chains that we forged with our past mistakes and sins. So the test on Eid morning is to listen for that spiritual clanking. If you can still hear it, it's a sign that you might have just missed your appointment with freedom. And this all leads us to the final and honestly the most jarring choice presented in the source. It really forces us to look at the ultimate outcome of our lives, and it all depends on whether that spiritual birth we talked about actually happened. Yeah, organic fertilizer. I know, it sounds harsh, but the metaphor is supposed to be shocking. The point is this: if a life doesn't produce any real spiritual fruit, no lasting change, no good in the world, then in the end, what is that body? It just becomes organic matter, fertilizer for the earth. And this lays out the two ultimate paths, the two final destinies. On the one hand, a life that was really just organic matter, Well, all that grows from that is some insignificant grass over a grave. But then you have the other possibility, a life that went through a real spiritual rebirth, that used its numbered days to build something meaningful, that leads to a kind of spiritual immortality, a legacy that lives on long after you're gone. So here we are, right back where we started. The guest is left. The moment of truth is now. And the question isn't just about whether you fasted or prayed. It's so much deeper than that. After everything, were you truly born? Or are you, and is the world, still waiting?
You know, that specific kind of hollow feeling?
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yeah, it usually hits on a Monday morning, maybe
Yeah.
2 or 3 days after a massive holiday wraps up. You walk into the living room, and the decorations are just, they're gone.
Right.
The special lights are coiled up in some cardboard box in the garage. And the house just feels, I don't know, bigger but emptier. The silence is just really loud.
It's the inevitable come down, the adrenaline crash after the high.
Exactly. We just finished this incredibly intense month of Ramadan. 30 days of high-octane spirituality, late nights, the community, the fasting, and suddenly it's just Tuesday.
Just a regular Tuesday.
Right. The coffee, the commute, the endless stream of emails, it all comes rushing back in like a flood. And there is this nagging, really uncomfortable feeling that I think most of us try to drown out with noise. It's the morning after syndrome.
It feels like the party's over, the guests have left, and you are just standing there holding a broom looking at the confetti on the floor.
That is the perfect visual. But today, we're not just talking about post-holiday blues or, how to get your sleep schedule back on track. We are doing a deep dive into something that frames this silence completely differently.
We are indeed.
We're looking at part 5 of Dr. Ahmed Khairy Al-Omari's book, Those Who Have Not Been Born Yet. And I have to say, looking at the notes you prepared for us today, this isn't the usual how to keep your habits up checklist.
Not at all.
It feels a lot more like an intervention.
That is a very accurate way to put it. It really is an intervention. This is what Al-Omari calls the moment of truth. You see, most of the literature out there, it focuses on the welcome.
Right, the preparation.
Exactly. How to prepare, how to maximize the month, how to organize your schedule. Al-Omari ignores all of that. He shifts the camera entirely to the farewell. He argues that the real story doesn't happen during those 30 days. It happens right now, in the aftermath.
It's a bit of a bait and switch, isn't it?
It is.
You think you're picking up a book about a holy month, but you're actually reading a critique of your entire existence.
That is the core friction he introduces. The premise is fascinating and honestly a little terrifying. He poses a question that hangs over every single person who just went through this experience.
And what is that question?
Did the month actually change you chemically, spiritually, fundamentally, or was it just a temporary pause button on your real life?
A pause button. That distinction he draws really stuck with me. Were you a resident of that spiritual state, or were you just a tourist? Because tourists go home, they unpack their souvenirs, and they go right back to their normal behavior.
But residents stay.
Residents stay. They live there now.
Precisely. And he frames this tourist versus resident dilemma as a question of birth, hence the title of the book. So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out which list we are actually on. Are we the newborns? Or are we what he calls the stillborns?
It's a heavy binary. There's no kind of born here.
No middle ground?
But to understand why the stakes are that high, we really have to look at how he treats time. Because he starts with a phrase that, I've heard it 1,000 times in this context, but I've never heard it analyzed quite like this.
You're talking about the Quranic phrase, ayam madudat.
Right. Counted days. It's the standard description of the month. Now, usually when I hear counted days, I hear it as a comfort.
Like a consolation.
Yeah, like, hey, don't worry, the hunger won't last forever. It's short, you can do it. It feels like a pat on the back.
That is the standard interpretation. It's meant to make the burden feel lighter, but Al-Omari flips the table on that completely.
Oh, right.
He suggests this isn't a comfort at all, it's a red alert.
A red alert. That sounds stressful.
It is meant to be stressful. When the text says counted days, he argues it isn't just talking about the duration of fasting. It is signaling the terrifying velocity of life itself.
The velocity.
Yes. He views Ramadan not just as a month on a calendar, but as a capsule experience of your entire human lifespan.
A capsule experience, so like a simulation.
Yeah.
A mini life.
Think of it as a dress rehearsal for mortality.
Oh, wow.
The month arrives with all this excitement that's birth, then there is struggle and effort, that's life, and then you blink, and it is gone. That's death. It passes in an absolute flash. Al-Omari argues that if you want to know what your life looks like from a distance, just look at how fast the last 30 days went. That's speed. That's your life.
That is deeply unsettling. It reminds me of that visual he uses, the hourglass, which, is a cliche for a reason.
Yeah.
But he makes it feel urgent in a way I haven't really thought about before.
He completely revitalizes the metaphor. The hourglass is unforgiving. Imagine the top chamber is your life, or this month. Once the sand starts pouring into the bottom chamber, absolutely nothing can stop it.
You can't pause it.
You cannot pause gravity. Al-Omari points out that once the days start pouring, they are technically already gone. You can't put the sand back up into the top glass.
It's that idea that you can't catch the sand. You can only watch it pile up at the bottom.
And here is the kicker, the question he wants you to ask yourself while looking at that hourglass. He says life is basically just a balance of these days. It's a bank account that only allows withdrawals, never deposits.
Right.
So if you wasted the counted days of Ramadan days that were specifically marked as holy, distinct, and high value, how are you handling the rest of your counted days? The ones that are slipping through your fingers right now on this random Tuesday.
Oof. That hits hard. It's an indictment of our attention span.
It really is.
If you couldn't pay attention during the Super Bowl of spirituality, what are the odds you're paying attention during the preseason games of regular life?
Exactly. If you couldn't catch the sand when you were actively trying, what happens when you stop trying? If the red alert didn't wake you up, are you just sleepwalking through the rest of your limited time?
So that sets the stakes. Time is running out, the sand is falling, and we can't stop it. Now, let's move to the scene he paints for the morning of Eid, the celebration at the end of the month. Because usually this is a happy scene. Kids running around, candy, new clothes, everyone hugging.
The festivities.
Yeah, but the source material paints this incredibly vivid, almost cinematic scene that feels so anxious. He calls it the delivery room.
This is where the metaphor of the book really sharpens. Al-Omari describes himself standing there on the morning of Eid. But he isn't describing a festive celebration. He describes standing at the door of a hospital delivery room.
That is such a massive shift in perspective. He's framing himself as what, a doctor?
No, he describes himself as a distressed father pacing the hallway waiting for news. He is waiting for a verdict on the child.
The anticipation.
Exactly. He looks at the crowds of people celebrating in the streets, but he doesn't see them as just partygoers. He sees them as souls that have just come out of labor.
He's diagnosing the crowd.
He is diagnosing the soul of the crowd. And he divides everyone into two very distinct categories. There is no middle ground here. You don't have a half birth.
Okay, let's break those down. The first group is the born.
Yes. These are the people who were, to use his metaphor, purified by the river. For them, the month wasn't just a routine. It was a cleansing flood. They washed away the old self.
Right.
They emerge on Eid morning with new personalities, clean and reborn. The process worked. The labor of the month resulted in a living, breathing new version of themselves.
Which implies the existence of the second group, the stillborn. Or, as the title says, those who have not been born yet.
This is the tragic category, and I think this is where most of us fear we might actually belong.
Yeah.
These are the people who went through the motions, they fasted, they prayed, maybe they even stayed up late at the mosque, they did the checklist. But Al-Omari says they remained in the darkness of the swamp.
The swamp versus the river. That's a stark contrast. But what does the swamp actually look like? Because I assume these people still look like they're celebrating on the outside.
That's the deception. In the swamp, despite all the lights surrounding them during the month, the community, the scripture, the atmosphere, nothing inside them actually shifted.
Nothing at all.
They were surrounded by light, but remained internally dark. They come out of the month with the exact same grudges, the exact same addictions, the exact same apathy.
That's the moment of truth.
Yeah.
It's the doctor coming out of the delivery room and saying either congratulations, it's a healthy baby, or just shaking his head.
It's brutal. He doesn't want you to just look at the crowd. He wants you to look in the mirror. He's asking, did you just go through 30 days of labor pains only to produce nothing?
Wow.
Did you suffer the hunger and the fatigue just to end up exactly where you started?
That leads us directly to the next test he offers. Because it's easy to say, oh, I feel great, I had a nice time, I must be born. We're so good at lying to ourselves.
We are experts at it.
But he offers a specific diagnostic test, the shackle test. And I have to be honest, reading this section gave me actual goosebumps. It felt like a scene from a psychological thriller.
It is a very visceral image. He wants to strip away the illusion completely.
So we move from the hospital waiting room to getting dressed in front of a mirror. You know the drill. New crisp clothes, smelling good, looking sharp for the holiday. You feel like $1,000,000.
You look perfect on the outside. You have the costume of the newborn. But Al-Omari asks a piercing question here. As you button that shirt or adjust that scarf, looking at yourself in the mirror, he asks, do you feel the marks of those thick shackles on your neck?
Talk about ruining the vibe.
Right.
But we need to define shackles here. Is he talking about sin?
He is referring to the theological concept of emancipation from the fire, which is the ultimate goal of the month. But he interprets fire very practically.
How so?
The fire isn't just a hell in the afterlife. It's the hell of sin, bad habits, and destructive patterns that bind us all year round. The anger, the greed, the addiction to screens, the gossip, the laziness. The goal of the month was to break those chains.
So if you're standing there in your new clothes, looking fresh, but you still have the same temper that explodes when traffic is bad, or the same selfishness with your money,
The chains are still there?
you just put a nice shirt over them?
Precisely. He adds this sensory detail that I love, and by love I mean it terrifies me.
Let's hear it.
He says, when you turn your head left and right to greet people on Eid, listen closely. Do you hear a rattling sound?
The clinking of the chains.
Yes. That metaphorical sound of your old habits clanking against your neck. If you hear that, it means you haven't been liberated. You are wearing a costume of freedom, but you are still a prisoner. He says if that's the case, you missed your appointment with destiny.
Missed your appointment with destiny. That is heavy. It really forces you to stop looking at what you did during the month, the checklist, the hours fasting, and start looking at who you are now that it's over. It's identity versus activity.
It exposes the difference between doing Ramadan and becoming something new through it.
And if that wasn't intense enough, he takes it one step further. He moves from the shackles to the ultimate reality check.
Yeah.
He zooms out from your life to your death.
This is section 4 of the book, The Grass and the Organic Fertilizer.
I have to say, when I read this, I stopped. I actually put the text down. Is he really calling us fertilizer?
He certainly does not pull punches. He transitions to a meditation on mortality. He talks about the grass that grows over graves. He calls it trivial grass.
Why trivial? Grass is grass. It's nature.
He calls it trivial because it feeds on bodies that produced no real fruit during their lives. It's a harsh biological truth. If we live, die, and leave no positive impact, no spiritual legacy, no change in the world, then biologically speaking, we are reduced to nothing more than organic fertilizer for weeds.
That is dark.
That is our total contribution to the universe.
So if we aren't born spiritually, if we don't develop a soul and a purpose that transcends our physical needs, we're just biology. We're just compost in waiting.
It is the ultimate ultimatum. He is saying, you have a choice. You can be just a body consuming food and taking up space, in which case your destiny is to become nutrients for trivial grass. Or you can be born in this spiritual sense.
Right.
If you are truly born, your impact survives the grave. You achieve a form of spiritual immortality. You become a legacy, not just nutrients for the soil.
That's the distinction between survival and significance. The grass is for those who just survived. The legacy is for those who were born.
Correct. And nobody wants to be remembered as just fertilizer.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So naturally, you as the listener and me, frankly, are thinking, okay, I don't want to be fertilizer. I want to stay born. I want to be a legacy. How do I do that?
Right.
Because let's be real, willpower usually fades by week 2. We all know the feeling of the New Year's resolution effect. Does the source material give us a tool to stop the slide back into the swamp?
It points to the Quran. But, and this is crucial, Al-Omari critiques the way most people use this tool. He actually blames our usage method for why we fail to stay born. He calls our current method the ledger approach.
The ledger approach.
Yeah.
Like accounting.
Exactly. He says we tend to treat the text like we're dealing with a strict moneylender. We focus solely on the transaction. I read 20 pages today. I finished 3 parts. I got this many credits or hazana. It's all math. It's all quantity. It's a numbers game.
I think a lot of people fall into that trap, especially during the month itself. It's a race to finish the book. You're scanning the pages, checking the clock, counting the lines. It feels like hitting a quota at work. Okay, quota met, I'm good.
And Al-Omari says that is not how you stay born. That is how you stay busy.
Stay busy.
Yes. That approach turns the text into a burden you carry, rather than a force that carries you. He suggests a different metaphor entirely. He calls the Quran an ancient knight.
An ancient knight. That's a cool image, but what does it mean practically?
Think about the relationship you have with a knight. You don't count a knight. You ride with him. You don't put the knight on a shelf to admire. You join him in battle. He says the text should be a vehicle. It is meant to break boundaries and help you explore what he calls the prairies of light within yourself.
Prairies of Light. That sounds so much more expansive than chapter 3, verse 10. It suggests that reading isn't about finishing a task. It's about exploration. It's a journey into territory you haven't seen before.
It is transformation versus transaction. The ledger approach is transactional. I give time, I get points. The ancient knight approach is transformational. I ride with this text, and it takes me to a place I couldn't reach on my own. It changes the landscape of who I am.
Wow.
That is how you ensure the birth sticks. You keep writing. You don't get off the horse just because the month ended.
I love that distinction. It shifts the focus from how much did I read to where did the reading take me? Did it take me to a place of more patience, more courage, more understanding?
Exactly. If you read the whole book but didn't move an inch spiritually, you just stood next to the horse. You didn't ride it. You collected the stats, but you missed the battle.
So we've gone through the warning of the counted days, the hourglass running out. We've seen the diagnosis in the delivery room, born or stillborn. We've taken the test of the shackles, listening for that rattling sound. And we've been given the tool of the night.
We have.
But the author doesn't end on a selfish note. He doesn't just say, save yourself, good luck to the rest of you, fertilizer.
No, and this is the outro of his argument, and perhaps the most important part for us living in a community. He connects the individual experience to social responsibility.
Yeah.
He says it is not enough to pull yourself out of the swamp.
Right, because if you made it to the riverbank, if you're the born, you're now standing on dry land, looking back at the swamp.
And your duty is to help others be born. He ends with a call to action. Help others who have not been born yet. There are people still stuck in the darkness, still listening to the rattling of their chains, maybe not even realizing they are chained.
Yeah.
If you have found a way to break yours, you have to turn around and help them with the key.
It's this idea that spiritual birth isn't a solo sport. We are in this delivery room together. If you've managed to breathe, help someone else take their first breath.
Precisely. It creates a cycle of rebirth. You validate your own birth by helping someone else achieve theirs. If you just run away to save yourself, have you really learned the lessons of compassion and brotherhood? Probably not.
And that brings us back to the moment we are in right now. The guest Ramadan has left the building, the decorations are down, the special programming is over, and Al-Omari leaves us with that haunting final verdict.
He asks directly, are you on the list of the newborns, or are you still on the waiting list of those who have not been born yet? It's a binary choice. There is no middle ground where you are sort of born. You are either breathing on your own, or you aren't.
And I think that is the power of this source material. It refuses to let us be comfortable with mediocrity. It demands a yes or no answer to the question of our own transformation. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary.
It forces you to stop and check your pulse. Not your physical pulse, but the pulse of that new person who is supposed to emerge after 30 days of training.
And if you can't find that pulse,
If you feel like you are just back to the old routine, then the counted days are slipping away as we speak, the sand is pouring, and you are at risk of just becoming organic fertilizer.
well, that is a lot to process. It transforms the post-Ramadan slump into a serious call to action. It's not about missing the past month, it's about surviving the current one.
It gives purpose to the normal days. The test hasn't ended. It has just moved from the classroom to the real world. This is where the real exam is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that cuts through the noise of your commute or your coffee break.
The author challenges us to identify the change. So ask yourself this right now, as you're listening. What is the specific newborn feature you can feel in yourself today?
Be specific. Don't just say I'm better.
Right. I don't mean a vague sense of spiritual wellness or good vibes. I mean specifically, is your patience new? Is your generosity new? Is your discipline new? Can you point to a scar that has healed or a shackle that is missing?
Because if you can't name it,
If you can't name it, you might just be wearing new clothes over old chains. And the mirror doesn't lie forever.
a powerful place to leave it. Check for the chains, folks. And if you find them, start looking for the night. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Until next time, keep exploring.